I've fixed 3,847 cars in 15 years. Yesterday, I found a $2,000 military-grade GPS tracker vacuum sealed inside a fuel tank. The owner had no idea it was there. The creeper wheels squeaked against the concrete as I slid under Angela Garcia's sedan, my LED flashlight cutting through the shadows beneath her car. 7:30 in the morning and the shop already smelled like home. Motor oil, metal shavings, and that particular blend of solvents that never quite washes out of your clothes. "Just need it done fast," Angela said from somewhere above me, her voice tight with an edge I couldn't place. "How long you think?" I adjusted my position and reached for the diagnostic scanner clipped to my belt. 20 years of this work, and fuel pump replacements were routine as breathing. "Let's run a proper diagnostic first, ma'am. Confirm what we're dealing with before we jump to conclusions." Her shadow shifted across the concrete floor. I could see her feet, worn sneakers, pacing back and forth near the bay door. The fluorescent lights overhead cast harsh lines through the undercarriage, illuminating years of road grime and salt corrosion. Everything looked standard until I connected the scanner leads. "Pressure reading 0, I called out, watching the numbers on the display. "Fuel pump's dead, just like you suspected." "So how long?" she pressed again. I slid out from under the car and stood, brushing dust off my work shirt. Angela Garcia looked to be mid-40s, brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under eyes that wouldn't meet mine directly. She wore oversized sunglasses despite being indoors, and her hands kept moving, checking her phone, adjusting her hoodie sleeves, fidgeting with her car keys. 3 hours for a proper job, I said. "Need to drop the tank, replace the pump assembly, test the system. Can't rush quality work, ma'am." She pulled out a roll of cash that made my eyebrows rise. $800 bills, counted out with shaking fingers onto my workbench. No paperwork trail needed, right? Just cash and done? The morning air carried the distant hum of traffic from the interstate, but inside the shop felt unusually quiet. Rico wasn't due in until 9, and the radio played low enough that I could hear every sound. The space heater cycling on, the air compressor building pressure, Angela's phone buzzing every 30 seconds. "Ma'am, I still need to write up the work order for my records," I explained, but she was already shaking her head. "Please, can we keep this simple?" I studied her face, looking for tells, the way I'd examine an engine for wear patterns. Fear, definitely. But fear of what? Car repairs made people nervous about cost, not about paperwork. Still, cash was cash, and she wasn't asking me to do anything illegal. "Your car, your choice," I said finally. "Let me get started." I moved the sedan into the service bay and raised it on the hydraulic lift, the familiar whine of machinery filling the space. Angela positioned herself near the open bay door where she could see the street, phone pressed to her ear, voice too low for me to catch words. The fuel tank removal followed the same sequence I'd performed hundreds of times. Socket wrench and precise quarter turns, fuel lines disconnected with the proper tools, electrical connectors tagged for reassembly. My father, Frank, had drilled this methodology into me during my apprenticeship. Every step documented, every connection verified twice. "Shortcuts don't just kill people," I muttered, repeating his old saying as I loosened the tank straps. "They kill reputations." The tank dropped with a metallic thud onto my rolling cart, heavier than expected with residual fuel. I maneuvered it toward the workbench, already mentally cataloging the replacement parts I'd need from inventory. That's when something caught my peripheral vision. A thin wire that shouldn't exist. I stopped rolling the cart and crouched down for a closer look. The wire was professionally routed along the tank's underside, secured with proper automotive clips, disappearing into a small black housing mounted near the filler neck. My pulse quickened as I traced the installation with my flashlight beam. This wasn't standard equipment, this wasn't factory, this was aftermarket, and it was hidden. "Mrs. Garcia?" I called out. "Could you come take a look at something?" But she was deep in her phone conversation, gesturing frantically at whoever was on the other end. I could hear fragments. "Told you I can't," and "don't have time for," but nothing that made sense. I pulled out my phone and took several photos of the device from different angles, my mechanic's training kicking in. Document everything. The black housing was roughly smartphone-sized, vacuum-sealed with military-grade connectors that I recognized from my Army Reserve weekends. The mounting brackets showed months of corrosion. This thing had been here a while. "Rico," I called toward the office, then remembered he wasn't in yet. The shop suddenly felt colder, despite the space heater running full blast. I'd found tracking devices before, angry spouses, paranoid business partners, that sort of domestic drama. But those were cheap plastic things from electronics stores, held on with duct tape and wishful thinking. This was professional work, professional equipment. Someone with serious resources had put this here, and they'd done it right. I looked up at Angela, still pacing by the bay door, still talking in urgent whispers. Her nervous behavior was making a lot more sense now. The cash payment, the no paperwork request, the constant checking of her phone and the street outside. She might not even know it was there. The morning light streaming through the bay doors felt harsh suddenly, exposing. If someone had gone to this much trouble to track her movements, they were probably watching right now. The device's 8-month corrosion timeline meant they'd been at it for most of a year. My hands were steady as I covered the device with a clean shop rag, but my mind was racing. 20 years of fixing cars, and I'd stumbled into something that had nothing to do with fuel pumps and everything to do with the kind of trouble that made people disappear. The radio was still playing classic rock, but I could barely hear it over the sound of my own heartbeat. I needed time to think this through properly. Angela was still pacing by the bay door, phone pressed to her ear, but I could feel her eyes on me every few seconds. "Mrs. Garcia?" I called out, wiping my hands on a clean shop rag. "I need to speak with you about your fuel pump." She ended her call abruptly and hurried over, those nervous eyes darting between my face and the Honda. "Is it done? Can I drive it?" "Well, ma'am, we've run into some complications." The lie came easier than I expected. "The fuel line connections are more corroded than I initially assessed. I'm going to need additional time to ensure we don't have any safety issues." Her face went pale. "How much time?" "Another few hours, maybe until closing." I kept my voice steady, professional. "I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but I won't sign off on work that might fail you down the road. I'll pay double." The words tumbled out fast. "Triple even. I just need it running." The desperation in her voice made my chest tight. Whatever she was running from, it was real enough to make her throw money at a problem that couldn't be solved with cash. The familiar smell of brake fluid and metal shavings seemed sharper suddenly, mixing with the tension rolling off her in waves. "Money won't make the work go faster, ma'am. Some things can't be rushed." I gestured toward the waiting area. "You're welcome to wait inside where it's warm. Coffee's fresh." She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my tone must have convinced her this wasn't negotiable. "Fine. But please, as fast as you can manage." Once she settled into the waiting area with her back to the service bay, I pulled out my phone and got back under the Honda. The device was still there, still hidden, still recording whatever data it was designed to collect. I switched on my LED flashlight and started documenting everything. The serial numbers were etched into the casing with laser precision. PT-X7-4429-MIL. The GPS antenna was positioned for optimal satellite reception, and the power supply routing showed someone had taken their time with the installation. This wasn't some weekend warrior job done in a parking lot with basic tools. I took photos from every angle, making sure to capture the mounting brackets and the corrosion patterns. 8 months of Texas weather had left its mark, but the device itself looked pristine. Military-grade weatherproofing, just like the electronics we used in the reserve. The shop's radio was playing something by Lynyrd Skynyrd, but I barely heard it over my own thoughts. Someone had invested serious money in tracking Angela Garcia's movements. Professional surveillance required professional motivation. You didn't drop this kind of cash unless the target was worth significant risk. Rico's truck pulled into the lot just as I was finishing the photo documentation. Perfect timing. "Morning, Paul," he called out, but I was already waving him over to the Honda. "Rico, I need your eyes on something." I kept my voice low, glancing toward the waiting area where Angela sat hunched over her phone. "Look at this, but don't make it obvious." He crouched down beside me and I pulled back the shop rag. Rico had seen plenty of aftermarket installations in his 15 years at the shop, but I watched his expression change as he processed what he was looking at. "That's not..." He stopped himself, then whispered, "That's military hardware, isn't it?" GPS tracking beacon. Professional grade. Been there about 8 months, based on the corrosion patterns. Rico's eyes found mine in the dim space under the car. She know it's there? I don't think so. Look at her behavior. She's scared of something, but not acting like someone who knows they're being tracked. We worked in silence for a few minutes, Rico helping me carefully document the device's mounting system. The installation showed tool marks from professional equipment, torque patterns that indicated proper installation procedures, not some amateur job done with borrowed tools. We need to remove this thing, Rico said finally. I know, but once we do, whoever placed it will know exactly where it stopped transmitting. Mitchell's Automotive, Rico finished the thought. They'll know she was here. The afternoon light was shifting through the bay windows, casting longer shadows across the concrete floor. I could hear Angela's leg bouncing nervously in the waiting area, the rhythmic tapping echoing off the shop walls. My father's voice echoed in my memory, clear as if he were standing right beside me. When something doesn't belong in an engine, you find out why before you remove it. Same principle applies to life, son. This device definitely didn't belong. Help me get it out clean, I told Rico. Preserve all the mounting evidence. If this goes where I think it might go, we'll need everything documented properly. Rico nodded and grabbed a clean shop rag from the cart. We worked methodically, photographing each step of the removal process. The device came free with the kind of precision that spoke to professional installation. No damaged components, no torn wiring, no shortcuts. I bagged it carefully, treating it like evidence because that's probably what it was. The black housing felt heavier in my hands than its size suggested, weighted with implications I was only beginning to understand. Angela checked her phone again. 3:47 p.m. Her anxiety was filling the shop like exhaust fumes, thick and toxic. Every sound from the street made her flinch. Every car door slam brought her to the edge of her seat. The realization hit me like cold water. Removing the device meant whoever placed it would know it was gone. The next scheduled GPS ping would show the vehicle stationary at my shop, then nothing. I just inserted myself into someone else's dangerous game without meaning to, and I didn't even know the rules. The fuel pump replacement proceeded normally after that, but my awareness had shifted completely. Every sound from the street made me glance toward the bay doors. The tracking device sat in my toolbox like a live grenade, its innocent appearance hiding sophisticated electronics that cost more than most people made in a month. Rico caught my eye as I torqued the last fuel line connection to specification. We both understood what we'd stumbled into. Professional surveillance equipment meant professional operators, people who noticed when their expensive toys stopped reporting location data. Angela was at my elbow before I'd even finished lowering the Honda off the lift, keys already in her hand. Is it done? Can I drive it? Yes, ma'am. Fuel system is fully operational. I handed her the keys, noting how her hands shook slightly. That'll be $200, as discussed. She paid in cash without counting it. Bills pulled from different pockets like she'd been breaking larger denominations to avoid patterns. No receipt requested, no questions about warranty or future service. Thank you, she said, already moving toward the driver's door. You didn't see anything unusual, right? Nothing that didn't belong? The question hung in the air between us. I could have told her about the device, warned her about what we'd found, but something in her eyes, a mixture of hope and terror, made me choose my words carefully. Your fuel pump was failing, ma'am. That's all I found. Relief flooded her features. She was gone 30 seconds later, her sedan disappearing into traffic carrying one less electronic passenger than when it arrived. I locked the shop doors early, pulling down the bay door with unusual urgency. The tracking device sat on my workbench under bright task lighting, waiting for analysis. Rico stayed behind without being asked. We both knew this wasn't over. Under the focused beam of my workbench lamp, the device revealed its true nature. Model numbers that traced to military contractors. Power management systems designed for months of operation. Cellular communication capabilities that could transmit location data anywhere in the world. Rico's multimeter readings confirmed what I already suspected. This thing's worth more than my truck, Paul. Look at these components. This is defense contractor equipment. I found the manufacturing codes etched into the internal housing. A quick search on Rico's phone traced them to companies that didn't sell to civilians. The kind of outfits that required security clearances just to walk in the door. This wasn't relationship drama or insurance fraud. Someone with serious resources had been tracking Angela Garcia for 8 months, using equipment designed for military operations. The question that sent ice through my veins was simple. If they were willing to use military-grade surveillance, what else were they willing to do? The GPS beacon was military-grade equipment, not some cheap tracking device. I spread the GPS beacon components across my workbench under the harsh fluorescent lights, each piece catching the glare like evidence at a crime scene. The metallic smell of solder and electronic components cuts through the familiar shop air of motor oil and brake fluid. Rico leans in beside me, his weathered hands steady as he positions the magnifying glass over the corroded battery terminals. Look at this green oxidation pattern, I say, pointing to the crystalline deposits that have formed around the power connections. The corrosion spreads in telltale rings, like tree growth showing the passage of time. This didn't happen overnight. Rico adjusts the magnifying glass, squinting at the damage. How long you thinking? Months, maybe 8, 9 months minimum? I tap my pen against the workbench, the familiar rhythm helping me think. The shop's compressors kick in with their steady hum, joining the ventilation fans in our backdrop of methodical investigation. We both fall into our natural rhythm. Systematic analysis, no rushing, let the evidence speak. Rico reaches for my phone. We need pictures of everything before we go any further. The camera flash reveals intricate circuit patterns I hadn't noticed before. Professional solder joints, military-grade components arranged with precision that makes my chest tight. This isn't some Radio Shack project thrown together in someone's garage. Whoever installed this knew what they were doing, Rico mutters, tracing the antenna wire with his finger. The wire is wrapped in heat-resistant shielding, the kind used in aerospace applications. Look at these connections. Perfect joints, no cold solder, proper flux cleanup. I examine the mounting bracket under my desk lamp, noting the precise drill holes and industrial-grade adhesive residue still clinging to the metal. The holes are perfectly aligned, measured with calipers, not eyeballed. This is military-spec equipment, Rico, not some Amazon tracker a jealous boyfriend would use. Jesus. Rico sets down the magnifying glass. What kind of trouble is that woman in? I connect my multimeter to the device's power leads, the familiar weight of the test probes steady in my hands. The digital display flickers to life, numbers scrolling across the screen that make both of us pause. Voltage readings, amperage draw, power consumption curves, all the data points I need to reverse engineer the timeline. 8 months minimum, I say, studying the battery degradation patterns against the maintenance charts I keep taped to my workbench. The lithium cells show the distinctive capacity loss that comes with extended field deployment. Could be longer. This thing's been running continuously, transmitting location data every few minutes. Rico whistles low, understanding the implications. In our business, 8 months of continuous operation means serious money, serious planning, serious intent. The shop feels suddenly smaller, more confined, as we realize the scope of what we're examining. My methodical nature kicks in fully. This isn't just a repair job anymore. This is evidence. Evidence of something much larger and more dangerous than either of us anticipated when Angela Garcia walked through that door. Rico, hand me that laptop from the parts counter. He slides the old Dell across the workbench, its fan whirring to life as I power it up. The device has a data port, standard military connector that I recognize from my Navy days. Some things you don't forget, even after 20 years of working on civilian vehicles. The connection clicks home with a satisfying snap. Code streams across the screen, raw data logs that make my stomach drop as I realize what I'm looking at. Timestamps showing movement patterns spanning hundreds of miles over months. Coordinates, speeds, duration of stops, even idle time calculations. Rico peers at the laptop screen, his expression growing grim as location coordinates scroll past in endless columns. Holy shit, Paul, look at all this data. She wasn't lying about being scared, I say quietly, the weight of Angela's fear suddenly making perfect sense. Every nervous glance at the windows, every question about privacy, every fidget with her phone, it all clicks into place now. The shop's familiar sounds fade into background noise as we confront the reality that someone has been systematically stalking our customer with professional-grade surveillance equipment for the better part of a year. I hit the print button. feeding paper into the old inkjet I keep for invoices. The coordinates come out in neat columns, timestamp after timestamp of Angela's life reduced to longitude and latitude points. Rico, help me spread these out. We lay the papers across my workbench like a detective's caseboard, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the evidence. Rico traces routes with his finger, patterns emerging from the data that make my skin crawl. Look at this, I say, pointing to clusters of coordinates that repeat week after week. Same addresses, same timing, same routes. Whoever's doing this knows her routine better than she does. Rico taps a series of timestamps. Tuesday mornings, 9:15 a.m., same location for 3 hours. Every week for 6 months. Doctor's appointment, maybe. Or work. I scan more data, seeing the digital footprint of a life under surveillance. Here, grocery store on Saturdays, gas station on Thursdays, even knows which parking spots she prefers. The implications hit me like a wrench to the gut. This isn't random. This is methodical, professional, patient. Someone has been building a complete profile of Angela Garcia's life, mapping every movement, learning every habit. Rico suddenly grabs my arm, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. Paul, what if they know she brought it here? The question hangs in the air like exhaust fumes, heavy and toxic. I look around my shop, my sanctuary, my livelihood, the place where I've built my reputation one careful repair at a time, and realize it might now be compromised. The familiar space feels exposed, vulnerable. Every sound from the street outside makes us both tense. A car door slams and we both freeze. Footsteps on the sidewalk and Rico's hand moves toward the shop phone. My hands shake slightly as I reach for the laptop's power button, the reality hitting me that analyzing this device might have put us both in the crosshairs. I force my hands steady as I reach for the anti-static bag I keep for sensitive electronics. The device feels heavier than it should, not from weight, but from implications. Rico's shadow moves across the shop window as he keeps watch, his usual easy confidence replaced by nervous energy. We need to get this to someone who can handle it properly, I say, though my voice lacks its usual certainty. The words feel inadequate, like trying to diagnose engine knock with a broken stethoscope. The familiar shop suddenly feels exposed. Every creak of the building settling, every distant car door, every footstep on the sidewalk outside makes my shoulders tense. The smell of motor oil and metal shavings, my sanctuary's signature scent, is overwhelmed by something sharper. Fear has its own odor, metallic and acrid, mixing with the taste of adrenaline coating my tongue. Rico glances back from the window. Paul, we're in deep shit here, aren't we? Maybe. I seal the bag carefully, my movements precise despite the tremor in my hands. But we did the right thing. The concrete floor feels cold beneath my steel-toed boots as I walk to my desk, reality settling in like morning frost. I'm not just a mechanic anymore. I'm a witness. Maybe a target. I dial Detective Sarah Chen's number, the card worn soft from years in my wallet. She's helped me before with insurance fraud cases, customers who claim damage they caused themselves. But this is different. Chen. Detective, it's Paul Mitchell at Mitchell's Automotive. I need to report something unusual. Go ahead, Paul. My voice steadies as I fall into the familiar rhythm of technical explanation. Professional surveillance equipment removed from customer vehicle. Military-grade GPS tracker. Months of data. Victim appears unaware of surveillance. The line goes quiet except for the scratch of pen on paper. How professional are we talking? Defense contractor equipment. Model PT-X7-4429-MIL. Requires security clearance to purchase. Installation shows 8 months of corrosion patterns. Jesus. Chain of custody? Documented removal. Photographed installation points. Preserved all mounting hardware. My partner Rico witnessed everything. Don't touch it again. I'm coming over. The phone clicks dead. Rico moves away from the window, his face grim. She's coming? 30 minutes. We wait in the kind of silence that feels heavy, loaded with unspoken concerns. Rico organizes tools that don't need organizing. I wipe down surfaces that are already clean. The shop's fluorescent lights buzz overhead, a sound I never noticed before but can't ignore now. Detective Chen's unmarked sedan slides into the bay exactly 30 minutes later. her timing as precise as a fuel injection system. She's a compact woman in her 40s, gray streaking through black hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Her handshake is firm, her eyes sharp as she surveys the evidence spread across my workbench. "Walk me through it," she says, pulling on latex gloves. I explain our discovery step by step, Rico adding technical details about the installation methods. Chen listens without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a worn leather notebook. "You did good work here," she says finally, examining our documentation. Her voice carries the weight of experience. But this is bigger than a simple stalking case. The words make the shop feel smaller, more confined. I've spent 20 years solving mechanical problems, but this puzzle requires expertise I don't have. "How much bigger?" Rico asks. Chen seals the evidence bag with official tape, her movements practiced and efficient. "Equipment like this doesn't get used for domestic disputes. We're talking organized surveillance, possibly federal jurisdiction. Someone with resources and patience." I lean against my workbench, feeling the familiar comfort of systematic procedures, even in unfamiliar territory. What's the process? Evidence analysis, victim interview, background checks. Depending what we find, FBI might take over. She looks at both of us seriously. "You need to be careful. Professional surveillance operations don't like being discovered." Rico shifts uncomfortably. "Should we be worried about retaliation?" "I can't promise you won't have problems, but you called it in, did everything right, that helps." The detective's measured tone isn't entirely reassuring. The shop's concrete walls suddenly feel thin, inadequate protection against whatever forces were tracking Angela Garcia. After Chen leaves with our evidence, Rico and I stand in the sudden quiet, processing what just happened. The familiar space feels marked now, changed by the investigation. No longer just a place where I fix cars. It's become part of something larger and more dangerous. I methodically clean my workbench, restoring order to tools and equipment. Rico helps without being asked, both of us working in the comfortable silence we've shared for years. The ritual of organization helps, returning some normalcy to the shop. But the memory lingers like exhaust fumes. Those GPS coordinates scrolling past, months of Angela's life reduced to data points. The professional precision of whoever installed that device. "Paul," Rico says quietly as we finish cleaning, "what if there's more we don't know?" I pause, wrench in hand, considering the question. There always is. As I lock up that evening, my usual routine carries new weight. I check the security system twice, test the door locks, scan the street for vehicles that don't belong. Rico pats my shoulder before heading to his truck, both of us understanding that tomorrow will bring questions we can't answer yet. Driving home, I catch myself checking mirrors more frequently than usual. The familiar streets feel different, less predictable, full of potential threats I never considered before. Angela's fear makes perfect sense now. Someone with professional resources and unlimited patience has been mapping her life for 8 months. The device's data logs replay in my mind. Those endless coordinates, the systematic tracking, the patient surveillance. But something Chen said bothers me. Equipment this sophisticated, resources this extensive, what could Angela have done to warrant such attention? Then I remember the border crossing timestamps Rico spotted, coordinates placing her in high security zones she couldn't have accessed knowingly. Angela Garcia isn't just a victim being stalked. She's someone who stumbled into something much bigger than she understands. The headlights of my truck cut through the darkness as I pulled into my driveway, but my mind was still back at the shop with that GPS device. 8 months of surveillance data, professional installation, federal implications. I sat in the cab for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, thinking about what Detective Chen had said. "You might face retaliation." The words echoed in my head like a warning bell that wouldn't stop ringing. My phone buzzed. Text message from Rico. "Shop alarm just went off. Motion detected in Bay 2. My blood went cold. Bay 2. Exactly where we'd been working on Angela's Honda, where we'd found the device. I backed out of the driveway, tires squealing against the asphalt. The drive back to Mitchell's Automotive took 12 minutes that felt like an hour. Every red light, every slow driver ahead of me, all of it felt like time slipping away while someone ransacked my shop. The building looked normal from the street. No broken windows, no obvious signs of forced entry, but the security light in Bay 2 was on, casting harsh shadows through the frosted glass windows. I parked across the street and called Rico. You see anything? Negative, but the motion sensor definitely triggered 15 minutes ago. Could be nothing, could be exactly what Chen warned us about. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight from the glove box. I'm going in, stay on the line. The front door was locked, deadbolt still engaged. I moved around to the side entrance, checking each window as I went. Everything looked secure until I reached the back of the building. The service door to Bay 2 hung open. Not kicked in, not forced, open with a key or picked by someone who knew what they were doing. Rico, we got a problem. Back door's compromised. Want me to call the cops? I hesitated. After what Detective Chen had told us about federal jurisdiction and possible retaliation, I wasn't sure who to trust anymore. Give me 2 minutes to assess the situation first. I stepped through the doorway, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal was there, but underneath it, something else. Cologne. Expensive stuff, not the kind mechanics wear. Bay 2 looked like a tornado had hit it. Tool drawers pulled open, contents scattered across the concrete floor. My workbench, where we'd analyzed the GPS device, was cleared clean. Every scrap of paper, every tool we'd used, gone. But it was what I found on my desk that made my stomach drop. A business card placed precisely in the center of my blotter. Black cardstock with silver lettering. Vincent Castellanos, security consultant. No address, just a phone number. I picked it up with a shop rag, careful not to leave fingerprints. The paper was thick, expensive, professional. This wasn't some random break-in. Paul, you still there? Rico's voice crackled through the phone. Yeah, they were here. Cleaned out everything related to the GPS device. I turned the card over, handwritten in blue ink. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Riverside Diner. They leave anything behind? A calling card. Vincent Castellanos. The name felt wrong in my mouth, like oil that needed changing. Never heard of him. Neither had I, but something about the precise placement of that card, the surgical way they'd removed only evidence related to our investigation, this wasn't amateur hour. These were professionals. I moved through the rest of the shop, documenting what was missing. The printed GPS logs, gone. The photos Rico had taken of the device, gone. Even the shop rags we'd used to handle the tracker had been collected. But they'd made one mistake. In their thoroughness, they'd missed something. Under my workbench, wedged between the wall and a hydraulic jack, was a single piece of paper, part of the GPS data printout that had fallen during our analysis. Just a fragment, but it showed 3 specific coordinates with timestamps. I pocketed it carefully and headed back outside. Rico, I'm locking up and heading home. We need to lay low for a while. What about tomorrow? That meeting? I looked at the business card again. Vincent Castellanos wanted to talk. After breaking into my shop and stealing evidence, he wanted a conversation. I'm going to find out what this is really about. The drive home took longer this time. I kept checking my mirrors, watching for headlights that stayed too close or turned too many of the same corners. The paranoia that Angela had been living with for 8 months was starting to make sense. At a red light, I called Detective Chen's number. Voicemail. Detective, it's Paul Mitchell. My shop was broken into tonight. They took everything related to the GPS device. Found a business card from someone named Vincent Castellanos. He wants to meet tomorrow. Thought you should know. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table with the fragment of GPS data spread out under the lamp. 3 coordinates, 3 timestamps, all from the same day, February 15th, 2020. I pulled up a mapping program on my laptop and entered the first coordinate. It placed the tracker at Angela's apartment complex at 6:47 a.m. Normal enough. The second coordinate, time-stamped 2:23 p.m., showed a location downtown. I zoomed in. Federal Building, 15th floor, Immigration Services. The third coordinate made my blood run cold. 11:45 p.m., same day. A warehouse district address I recognized. 1247 Industrial Boulevard. I'd done work there before. It was a holding facility for seized vehicles and evidence. Angela's car had been at an immigration office and a federal evidence facility on the same day. Either she was lying about not knowing these places, or someone else had been driving her Honda while she thought it was safely parked. I leaned back in my chair. pieces of the puzzle starting to fit together in ways I didn't like. The military-grade GPS device, the professional break-in, Vincent Castellanos and his expensive business card. This wasn't about a stalking ex-husband with law enforcement connections. This was something bigger, something that involved federal buildings and evidence facilities and people with resources to conduct 8 months of professional surveillance. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Don't miss our appointment tomorrow. Come alone. We have a lot to discuss about Angela Garcia." I stared at the message, then at the GPS fragment on my table. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I was going to get answers. One way or another, but first, I needed to find Angela and warn her that whatever she was running from had just found us both. I stared at the text message for another long moment, then powered down my phone. Whatever Vincent Castellanos wanted to discuss could wait. Right now, I needed to find Angela before someone else did. The address from her repair invoice led me to Garden View Apartments, a complex that had seen better decades. Peeling paint on the stair railings, parking lot potholes that could swallow a tire. I found Unit 2B and knocked. "Who is it?" Her voice came through the door, tight with fear. "Paul Mitchell, from the shop. We need to talk." The deadbolt clicked, then a chain lock, then another deadbolt. Angela opened the door just wide enough to see my face. "How did you find me?" "Your address from the work order. Can I come in?" "This isn't safe to discuss in the hallway." She stepped back, and I got my first good look at how she'd been living. Curtains drawn tight, furniture pushed away from windows, a suitcase by the door half-packed like she was ready to run at any moment. The coffee table was covered with manila folders, photographs, and what looked like legal documents. "You said you found something on my car," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "What was it?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos Rico and I had taken. Military-grade GPS tracker, professional installation. It's been on your vehicle for approximately 8 months. Angela sank onto her couch like her legs had given out. 8 months, she whispered. That's when the threats started getting specific, when he started knowing things he shouldn't know. "Your ex-husband?" She nodded, then shook her head. "Ex-boyfriend, Detective Marcus Webb, Dallas PD, 15 years on the force." Her voice turned bitter. "I thought dating a cop would make me safer. Turned out it just gave him better tools to destroy my life." I sat down across from her, keeping my distance. "This device, it's not something you buy at an electronics store. Military-grade, professional installation. Your ex didn't just slip this under your car in a parking lot. Marcus bragged about having access to equipment, about knowing people who could find anyone, anywhere." She gestured at the folders on the table. "I've been documenting everything. Photos of him outside my apartment, screenshots of threatening texts, witness statements from coworkers." I flipped through the papers with the same attention I'd give a complex wiring diagram. The documentation was thorough, methodical. Timestamps, locations, corroborating witnesses. You've been building a case. But what good is evidence when the people you're supposed to report to might be his friends? The question hung heavy between us. Internal affairs, the district attorney's office, he knows people everywhere. He made sure I understood that. My mind raced through the implications like troubleshooting a complex electrical problem. If her ex had law enforcement connections, traditional channels might be compromised. But I knew Detective Sarah Chen. She's straight, by the book, someone who wouldn't tolerate corruption in her ranks. "I might know someone who can help," I said carefully. "Someone clean." Angela looked up with the first spark of hope I'd seen. "You do that? You don't even know me." I shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Right's right, wrong's wrong. Simple as that." She was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "Why are you helping me? Most people would just want to stay out of it." "Because I found that tracker during a routine fuel pump replacement, and now someone broke into my shop to steal the evidence. That makes it my business." I leaned forward. "And because my father taught me that when you see something wrong, you fix it, whether it's a broken engine or a broken system." Angela wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Marcus always said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. Even when I had proof, he'd twist it around, make me doubt what I was seeing." "Gaslighting," I said. "Classic abuser tactic. But GPS data doesn't lie. Neither do wear patterns on mounting hardware." She managed a weak smile. You sound like you're diagnosing a car problem. Same principles apply. Follow the evidence, trust the data. Don't let anyone convince you that what you're seeing isn't real. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Still planning to keep our appointment? Angela's safety might depend on it. I showed her the message. Her face went white. That's him, she whispered. That's how he writes. Short sentences, implied threats. She stood up and started pacing. He knows you're helping me. God, I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to help. I stood up too, moving to her window and peering through a gap in the curtains. The parking lot looked normal, but that didn't mean much. The question is, what do we do now? I run. Like I've been doing for 8 months. Her voice was hollow, defeated. Find another city, another job, another life to abandon when he finds me again. Or we end this. I turned back to face her. I'm meeting with Detective Chen tomorrow morning. She'll want to hear your story, see your documentation. What if she's connected to Marcus? What if she tips him off? Then we'll know the corruption goes deeper than one dirty cop, and we'll find another way. I picked up one of her folders, flipping through photos of a man in police uniform standing outside her workplace. But running forever isn't living, Angela. It's just a slower way of dying. She stopped pacing and looked at me with something I hadn't seen before. Determination instead of just fear. Okay, she said quietly. Let's try it your way. But if this goes wrong, if Marcus comes after you because you helped me, let me worry about that, I said, heading for the door. Right now, you need to pack everything important and find somewhere else to stay tonight. If they broke into my shop, they might know about this place too. As I reached for the door handle, Angela called my name. Paul, thank you for believing me, for not thinking I was just some crazy woman making things up. I nodded and stepped out into the hallway. Behind me, I heard the deadbolts clicking back into place. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., Vincent Castellanos wanted answers. But first, Detective Chen was going to get the whole story. Time to find out just how deep this corruption really went. I walked down the apartment hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. My steel-toed boots echoed off the linoleum, each step deliberate and measured. The deadbolts clicked behind me, 3 of them, I'd counted. Angela wasn't taking any chances. The night air hit my face as I pushed through the building's front door, cold, with the promise of rain. I checked my watch, 11:47 p.m. Vincent Castellanos wanted to meet at 10 a.m. 10 hours to figure out what the hell I'd walked into. My truck sat under the parking lot's single working streetlight, the metal toolbox in the bed catching the yellow glow. I climbed in and sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. The GPS fragment was still in my shirt pocket, coordinates burned into my memory. Immigration Services, Federal Evidence Facility, same day. What had Angela stumbled into? I started the engine and pulled onto the empty street. The radio crackled to life, late-night talk show discussing government surveillance. I switched it off. Had enough of that topic for one day. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Come alone. Vincent Castellanos. Making sure I got the message, I drove through downtown, past the closed shops and empty office buildings. The city looked different at midnight, cleaner somehow, like all the dirt got washed away with the crowds. Street sweepers worked their methodical patterns, brushing debris into neat piles. At a red light, I pulled out the GPS fragment. The plastic casing was cracked, but the circuit board inside looked intact. Professional-grade military specification. Not something you picked up at Radio Shack. The light turned green. I tucked the fragment back into my pocket and drove toward home. My house sat dark at the end of Elm Street, porch light casting a yellow circle on the front steps. I'd bought it 15 years ago, small, practical, everything in working order. The garage door opener responded to my remote with a satisfying mechanical whir. Inside the garage, I hit the overhead lights. My personal workspace, not as large as the shop, but organized with the same precision. Tools hung in their designated spots, parts bins labeled and sorted, a place for everything. I pulled the GPS fragment from my pocket and set it on the workbench under the magnifying lamp. The coordinates were etched into my memory, but I wrote them down anyway. 32.7767 degrees north, 96.7970 degrees west. Immigration Services Building. And 32.7834 degrees north, 96.8012 degrees west. Federal Evidence Facility. Angela's car had been at both locations on February 15th, 2020, same day. What were the odds of that being coincidence? I opened my laptop and pulled up a mapping program. The two locations were 3 miles apart. Immigration Services was downtown, near the courthouse. The federal facility was in an industrial district, surrounded by warehouses and freight yards. Why would Angela's car be at both places? And why would Detective Marcus Webb care enough to track her movements? I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the day settle on my shoulders. 28 years of fixing engines, and I'd never had a fuel pump replacement turn into whatever this was. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. He knows you have it. Be careful. I stared at the screen. Angela? Someone else? I deleted the message and powered down the phone. Enough mystery for one night. But sleep wouldn't come easy. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about GPS trackers and federal facilities and a scared woman who'd locked 3 deadbolts behind her. The house settled around me with familiar creaks and sighs. But tonight, even those sounds felt different. Threatening. At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went back to the garage. The GPS fragment sat where I'd left it, innocuous under the work light. I photographed it from every angle, documenting the circuit patterns and component markings. If Vincent Castellanos wanted to discuss this device, I'd be ready with facts. The coffee maker gurgled to life at 5:30, its timer set with the same precision I applied to everything else. I stood at the kitchen window watching the sky lighten over the neighborhood. Normal suburban morning, newspapers hitting driveways, dogs being walked, garage doors opening. But nothing felt normal anymore. I showered and dressed in clean work clothes, checking my appearance in the mirror. The man looking back had grease under his fingernails despite scrubbing, worry lines around his eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. 28 years of honest work, and now I was involved in federal surveillance and corrupt cops. The GPS fragment went into a small evidence bag, sealed and labeled. I tucked it into my jacket pocket, next to my phone and wallet. Whatever Vincent Castellanos wanted to discuss, I'd listen. But I wasn't going in blind. At 8 a.m., I drove to the shop. Rico's motorcycle was already parked out front, chrome exhaust pipes gleaming in the morning sun. He'd want to know what happened with Angela, but some conversations needed to wait. Inside, Rico looked up from the parts catalog he was studying. "Morning, Paul. How'd it go with the lady?" "Complicated," I said, hanging my jacket on the hook by the office door. "She's safe for now. And the GPS thing? Still working on it." I poured coffee from the pot Rico had started, black and strong. "Got a meeting this morning. Personal business." Rico nodded, understanding the code. Some things stayed between partners, others stayed private. 20 years of working together had taught us both when not to ask questions. I spent the next hour going through the motions of normal business, checking the work schedule, reviewing parts orders, returning calls from customers. But my mind kept drifting to the meeting ahead. At 9:30, I locked the GPS fragment in my desk drawer and told Rico I'd be back after lunch. The drive to Riverside Diner took 15 minutes through morning traffic, past strip malls and office parks that looked exactly like every other American suburb. The diner sat on a corner lot, surrounded by parking spaces and decorative landscaping. Classic chrome and glass design from the 1950s, maintained but showing its age. A place where conversations could happen without drawing attention. I parked where I could see the entrance and all exit routes. Old habits from my father's warnings about always knowing your way out. The GPS fragment felt heavy in my pocket as I walked toward the front door. Vincent Castellanos was waiting. He sat in a corner booth, back to the wall, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. Vincent Castellanos looked exactly like what he was, a man who made his living convincing people to trust him with their life savings. I slid into the booth across from him, keeping my hands visible on the table. "Mr. Castellanos, Paul." He smiled, the kind of practiced expression that never reached the eyes. "Thanks for coming. Coffee?" "I'm fine." I studied his face, looking for tells the way I'd examine a suspicious engine noise. "You said Angela's safety depended on this conversation." His smile faded. "Straight to business. I respect that." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "What do you know about Detective Marcus Webb?" "Enough. I kept my expression neutral. Dallas PD, 15 years on the force. Has a problem with his ex-girlfriend. More than a problem. Castellanos pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos. Webb's been tracking Angela for 2 years. But that's not why you're here, he turned the phone toward me. The screen showed a GPS tracking interface. Multiple vehicles, multiple locations, all active. Angela stumbled into something bigger than stalking, Paul. Much bigger. I counted 12 active signals on the map. Whose cars? Victims, witnesses, anyone who got too close to certain financial irregularities in city contracts. His finger tapped the screen. Webb wasn't just stalking Angela. He was running surveillance on everyone connected to a federal investigation. The coffee in my stomach turned cold. What investigation? Building permits, fraudulent contractor licenses, about $60 million in city funds that disappeared through shell companies. Castellanos pocketed his phone. Angela's mother was one of the victims. Small fish, $16,000 for fake HVAC work. But Angela started asking questions, and Webb was protecting the operation. Webb was the operation. Him and a city inspector named David Thornton. They'd approve fake permits, take kickbacks from contractors like me, then use police resources to monitor anyone who complained. He paused, watching my reaction. I wasn't the only one running scams, Paul. I was just better at it. I leaned back, processing. Why tell me this? Because Detective Chen is honest, and because you found something Webb thought he'd destroyed. Castellanos reached into his jacket, pulled out a small electronic device. This is a GPS tracker, military grade, just like the one you found on Angela's car. I recognized the model immediately. Where did you get it? Off my own vehicle. Webb's been tracking me for 6 months, waiting for me to lead him to Angela. He set the device on the table between us. The difference is, I know how to disappear. Angela doesn't. What do you want from me? Nothing. I'm already gone. New identity, offshore accounts, the whole package. He stood, dropping a 20 on the table. But Angela's still here, still in danger, and Webb's getting desperate. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one telling you the truth. Castellanos buttoned his suit jacket. Check the device's installation date. Check the data logs. Then ask yourself why a corrupt cop would risk everything to track a contractor he's never met. He walked toward the exit, then turned back. One more thing, Paul. That federal evidence facility on Angela's GPS data, Webb has access. He's been destroying evidence for months. The diner door chimed as he left. I sat alone with the tracking device, watching his car disappear into traffic. My phone buzzed. Text from Rico. Shop's secure. See you tomorrow. I picked up the GPS tracker, examining the mounting points. Professional installation, just like Angela's. But this one showed wear patterns suggesting months of use. The serial number was different, but the model was identical. 2 devices, same operation, different targets. I called Detective Chen. Paul, how did the meeting go? We need to talk. I've got another device. Another tracker? From where? Vincent Castellanos. Claims Webb's been tracking him for 6 months. I started my truck, heading back toward the shop. Detective, how well do you know Marcus Webb? Silence on the line. Then, why do you ask? Because I think we're dealing with more than stalking. And I think you already know that. Come to the station, bring the device. And Paul, watch your back. The line went dead. I drove through afternoon traffic, the second GPS tracker heavy in my pocket beside the first fragment. 2 pieces of the same puzzle, but the picture they formed was larger than I'd imagined. At the shop, I found Rico working on a brake job, his hands steady on the wrench, despite the questions I could see in his eyes. That meeting go okay? He asked without looking up. Complicated. I unlocked my desk, retrieved the GPS fragment from this morning. Rico, if someone asked you to forget you ever saw certain evidence, would you? He set down his tools, wiped his hands on a shop rag. Depends on the evidence, and who was asking. I showed him both devices, the fragment from Angela's car and the complete tracker from Castellanos. These came from the same operation, professional surveillance, multiple targets. Rico examined the mounting points, the wear patterns, the serial numbers. Same installation methods, same equipment source. He looked up. How many more are out there? That's what I'm trying to figure out. And the cops? Some are honest, some aren't. I pocketed both devices. I'm about to find out which is which. The drive to the police station took 20 minutes through rush hour traffic. I parked in the visitor lot, checking my mirrors out of habit that was becoming paranoia. The GPS devices felt like evidence of something larger than either of us had signed up for. Detective Chen met me in the lobby, her expression grim. "Conference room," she said, leading me past desks where other officers worked their cases. "We need to talk privately." The room was small, windowless, with a table and 4 chairs. Chen closed the door, activated a recording device. "For the record, this is Detective Sarah Chen interviewing Paul Mitchell regarding additional surveillance equipment. Paul, please describe what you brought." I placed both devices on the table. GPS tracker, same model as the one found on Angela Garcia's vehicle. This one was removed from Vincent Castellanos' car. Claims it was installed by Detective Marcus Webb. Chen examined the devices without touching them. Installation time frame? Based on wear patterns, approximately 6 months. Professional mounting, same as the first device. I pulled out my phone, showed her the photos I'd taken. Serial numbers are sequential, manufactured in the same batch. That suggests coordinated procurement. Someone ordered multiple units. Chen made notes on a legal pad. "What else did Castellanos tell you?" I repeated the conversation verbatim. The federal investigation, the building permits, the claim about Webb's involvement. Chen's expression grew darker with each detail. "Paul, I need to ask you something, and I need a straight answer." She leaned forward. "How much do you trust your own safety right now?" The question hit like cold water. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've uncovered evidence of a surveillance operation that reaches into law enforcement. You've met with a suspect who's about to disappear. And you're sitting in a police station where some officers might not have your best interests at heart." I felt the weight of my father's lessons about knowing your exit routes. "Are you saying I'm in danger here?" "I'm saying we need to be very careful about who we trust with this information." Chen stood, walked to the window overlooking the parking lot. "I've been a cop for 12 years. I know when something smells wrong. And this smells wrong? This smells like corruption at a level that could destroy careers, maybe lives." She turned back to me. "I'm going to ask you to do something that goes against every instinct you have as a law-abiding citizen." "What?" "Keep those devices. Don't log them as evidence yet. And don't tell anyone else about this conversation." I stared at her. "You want me to withhold evidence?" "I want you to stay alive long enough for us to figure out who we can trust." Chen sat back down, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Paul, if Webb is running surveillance on federal witnesses, and if he has access to evidence storage, then logging these devices could put them in his hands." The room felt smaller suddenly. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we do this investigation off the books until we know who's clean." She slid a business card across the table. "That's my personal cell. If anything happens, anything at all, you call me directly." I pocketed the card along with the GPS devices. "What about Angela?" "She's safe where she is, for now." Chen walked me to the door. "But Paul, this case just became federal, and federal cases have a way of making people disappear." The parking lot felt exposed as I walked to my truck. Every car could contain surveillance. Every person could be watching. I drove home through familiar streets that no longer felt safe, the GPS devices burning in my pocket like evidence of a conspiracy I'd stumbled into by accident. At home, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the 2 devices under the overhead light. Professional equipment, sequential serial numbers, multiple targets.